Hanson's Shrine. Hanson's Shrine was lazy and didn't want to do anything. She said to herself, "What should I do? Should I eat, or should I sleep, or should I work? I'll eat first." After she had eaten her fill, she said again, "What should I do? Should I work, or should I sleep? I'll take a little nap first." Then she lay down and slept, and when she woke up, it was night, so she couldn't go to work anymore. One afternoon, Hans came home and found Trine lying in the room again, sleeping. He took his knife and cut her skirt off up to her knees. Trine woke up and thought, "Now I'll go to work." But when she came out and saw that her skirt was so short, she was startled, became confused whether she really was Trine, and said to herself, "Am I or am I not?" She didn't know what to answer, stood hesitating for a while, and finally thought, "I'll go home and ask if it's me. They will surely know." So she went back, knocked on the window, and called in, "Is Hanson's Trine inside?" The others answered, thinking it was her. "Yes, she's lying in the room sleeping." "Well, then it's not me," said Trine cheerfully, walked out of the village and never returned, and Hans was rid of Trine. Of the napkin, the knapsack, the cannon hat, and the horn. There were 3 brothers from Schwarzenfels, very poor at home, who traveled to Spain. There they came upon a mountain completely surrounded by silver. The eldest brother made his pay, took as much as he could carry, and went home with his loot. The other 2 continued their journey and arrived at a mountain where nothing but gold could be seen. One said to the other, "How should we do it?" And the second took as much gold as he could carry and went home. But the third wanted to try his luck even better and continued on. After 3 days, he entered a vast forest, tired from walking, plagued by hunger and thirst, and unable to find his way out of the forest. He climbed a tall tree to see if he could find the end of the forest, but all he saw were treetops. He wished only to satisfy his hunger one more time and began to climb down from the tree. When he came down, he saw under the tree a table set with various foods. He was delighted, approached the table, and ate his fill. And when he had finished eating, he took the napkin with him and went on. And when hunger and thirst came upon him again, he opened the napkin, and what he wished for was there. After a day's journey, he came to a charcoal burner who burned charcoal and cooked potatoes. The charcoal burner invited him to dinner, but he said, "I don't want to eat with you, but I want to invite you to dinner." The charcoal burner asked, "How is that possible? I don't see that you have anything with you." "That doesn't matter. Just sit down." And he opened his napkin, and everything that was wished for was there. The charcoal burner enjoyed it and liked the napkin very much, and when they had finished eating, he said, "Trade with me. I'll give you an old soldier's knapsack for the napkin. If you tap it with your hand, a corporal and 6 soldiers with rifles and bayonets come out. They can't help me in the forest, but I'd like the napkin." The exchange took place. The charcoal burner kept the napkin, and the Schwarzenfelser took the knapsack. But as soon as he had gone a short distance, he struck it, and the war heroes came out. "What does my master want?" "You march over there, 174, and fetch my napkin from the charcoal burner I left it with." So they went back and brought him the napkin again. In the evening, he came to another charcoal burner, who invited him to dinner again and had potatoes without fat. The Schwarzenfelser, however, opened his napkin and invited him to dinner. Everything was as desired. When the meal was over, this charcoal burner also asked for the exchange. He gave a hat for the napkin. If you turn it upside down on your head, the cannons go off, as if there were a battery on the spot. When the Schwarzenfelser had gone a distance, he tapped his old knapsack again, and the corporal with 6 men had to fetch him the napkin again. He continued further into the same forest, and in the evening came to the third charcoal burner, who invited him, like the others, to raw potatoes, but received a treat from him and exchanged the napkin for a horn. When blown upon, all cities and villages, as well as all fortifications, fell apart. However, the charcoal burner did not keep the napkin any longer than the others, because the corporal with 6 men soon came and took it away. When the Schwarzenfelser had everything together, he turned back home and wanted to visit his 2 105 brothers. They were rich from their abundance of gold and silver, and when he arrived wearing an old torn coat, they did not want to recognize him as their brother. Immediately, he struck his knapsack and had 150 men march up. They had to beat up his brothers properly. The whole village came to help, but they accomplished little in the matter. It was reported to the king, who sent a military commando to capture these soldiers. But the Schwarzenfelser struck his knapsack until infantry and cavalry marched up, beating the military commando back to its place. The next day, the king sent out even more people to put the old man in peace. However, he hid his knapsack so long until an entire army emerged, and then he turned his hat a few times, and the cannons went off, and the enemy was beaten and driven away. Peace was then concluded, and he was made viceroy and given the princess as his wife. However, the princess constantly thought that she would have to take such an old man as her husband, and wanted nothing more than to get rid of him again. She, 176, daily investigated the advantages of his power, and he was so faithful that he revealed everything to her. She swiped his knapsack from him and divorced him, and when soldiers marched against him, his people were lost. Yet he still had his little hat. He grabbed it and let the cannons go off, thus he defeated the enemy and peace was made again. After that, he let himself be deceived again, and the princess swiped his little hat from him. And when the enemy attacked him, he had nothing but his horn. He blew on it, and immediately villages, towns, and all fortifications were destroyed. Then he was king alone and remained so until he died. 43. The Strange Banquet. Once upon a time, a blood sausage and a liver sausage lived together, and the blood sausage invited the liver sausage as a guest. When mealtime came, the liver sausage went happily to the blood sausage's house. However, when she entered the front door, she saw all sorts of strange things. On every step of the staircase, of which there were many, there was always something different. There was a broom and a shovel fighting each other, then a monkey with a large wound on its head, and so on. The liver sausage was completely frightened and dismayed by this, but she gathered her courage, went into the room, and was warmly welcomed by the blood sausage. The liver sausage began to inquire about the strange things outside on the staircase, but the blood sausage acted as if she didn't hear it, or as if it wasn't worth discussing, or she said something like, "It must have been my maid chatting with someone on the staircase," and changed the subject. The blood sausage then said she had to check in the kitchen to make sure everything was properly prepared and nothing was thrown into the ashes. Meanwhile, as the liver sausage walked back and forth in the room, still thinking about the strange things, someone, I don't know who it was, came in and said, "I warn you, liver sausage, you are in a den of blood and murder. Make haste to leave, if you value your life." The liver sausage didn't hesitate long, sneaked out the door, and ran as fast as she could. She didn't stop until she was in the middle of the street outside the house. There she looked back and saw the blood sausage standing up in the attic window with a long, gleaming knife that looked freshly sharpened, threatening and shouting down, "If I had you, I would get you." 54. Hands dumb. There was once a king who lived happily with his daughter, his only child. Suddenly, the princess gave birth to a child, and no one knew who the father was. The king didn't know what to do for a long time, but eventually he commanded that the princess and the child should go to the church, where a lemon would be given to them. Whoever the lemon touched would be the father of the child and the husband of the princess. This was done, but the command was given that only beautiful people should be allowed into the church. In the town, there was a small, crooked, and hunchback boy who was not very bright and therefore called Hans Dumb. He managed to sneak unseen into the church among the others, and when it came time to distribute the lemon, it was handed to Hans Dumb. The princess was shocked, and the king was so enraged that he ordered the princess, the child, and Hans Dumb to be put into a barrel and set adrift at sea. The barrel soon floated away, and while they were alone at sea, the princess complained and said, "You wretched, hunchbacked, impudent boy, you are to blame for my misfortune. Why did you push your way into the church? The child was none of your concern." "Oh yes," said Hans Dumb, "it did concern me, because I once wished for you to have a child, and what I wish for comes true." "If that's true, then wish for us something to eat here." "I can do that," said Hans Dumb, and he wished for a bowl full of potatoes. The princess would have preferred something better, but because she was so hungry, she helped him eat the potatoes. After they were full, Hans Dum said, "Now I will wish for us a beautiful ship." And hardly had he said that, they were sitting in a magnificent ship filled with everything one could desire. The helmsman sailed straight to land, and when they disembarked, Hans Dum said, "Now a castle shall stand there." A magnificent castle appeared, and servants in golden clothes came and led the princess and the child inside. When they were in the middle of the hall, Hans Dum said, "Now I wish to become a young and clever prince." His hunchback disappeared, and he became handsome, straight, and friendly. The prince liked him, and he became her husband. They lived happily for a long time. Once, the old king rode out, got lost, and came to the castle. He was amazed because he had never seen it before, so he decided to stay. The princess recognized her father immediately, but he did not recognize her and thought she had drowned at sea long ago. She entertained him splendidly, and when he wanted to leave, she secretly put a golden cup in his pocket. After he had ridden away, she sent a few riders after him. They stopped him and searched him, finding the golden cup in his pocket. They brought him back. He swore to the princess that he had not stolen it and didn't know how it got into his pocket. Therefore, she said, one must be careful not to immediately accuse someone of guilt, and revealed herself as his daughter. The king was overjoyed. They lived happily together, and after his death, Hans Dum became king. 59. Prince Swan. There was a girl in the middle of a large forest when a swan approached her. The swan had a ball of yarn and said to her, "I am not a swan, but an enchanted prince. You can release me by unwinding the ball of yarn to which I am bound. But be careful not to break the thread, or I won't reach my kingdom and won't be released. If you unwind the entire ball of yarn, then you will be my bride." The girl took the ball of yarn, and the swan soared into the air while the yarn unwound easily. It unwound all day long, and by evening, the end of the thread was already visible. Unfortunately, it got caught on a thorn bush and broke. The girl was very upset and cried. Night was falling. The wind was blowing loudly in the forest, frightening her, so she began to run as fast as she could. After running for a long time, she saw a little light, rushed towards it, found a house, and knocked on the door. An old woman came out, surprised to see a girl at her door. "Oh, my child, where are you coming from so late?" she asked. "Please give me shelter for the night," said the girl. "I got lost in the forest, and a little bread to eat." "That's a difficult thing," said the old woman. "I would like to give it to you, but my husband is a man-eater. If he finds you, he'll eat you without mercy. But if you stay outside, the wild animals will get you. I'll see if I can help you." So she let her in, gave her a little bread to eat, and then hid her under the bed. The man-eater always came home shortly before midnight, after the sun had completely set, and left in the morning before sunrise. It didn't take long before he came in. "I smell human flesh," he said, searching the room. Finally, he reached under the bed and pulled the girl out. "This is still a good bite." The woman pleaded and begged until he promised to let her live through the night and eat her for breakfast in the morning. However, before sunrise, the old woman woke the girl up. "Hurry up and leave before my husband wakes up. Here, I'll give you a golden spinning wheel to keep as a token of my gratitude. My name is Sun." The girl left and arrived at another house that evening, where everything was as it had been the previous night. The second old woman gave her a golden spindle when she departed and said, "My name is Moon." On the third evening, she arrived at a third house, where the old woman gave her a golden reel and said, "My name is Star." Meanwhile, Prince Swan, though the thread had not yet been completely unwound, had already come so far that he could reach his kingdom. There he became king, married, and lived in great splendor on the glass mountain. That evening, the girl arrived, but a dragon and a lion guarded the entrance. She used the bread and bacon to appease them, and they let her pass up to the castle gate. However, the guards at the castle gate would not let her inside. So she sat down in front of the gate and began to spin on her golden spinning wheel. The queen saw it from above and admired the beautiful wheel. She came down and wanted it for herself. The girl agreed to give it to her if she allowed her to spend one night next to the king's bedroom. The queen agreed, and the girl was brought up. Everything that was said in the room could be heard in the bedroom. When night fell and the king lay in bed, she sang, "Does King Swan still think of his promised bride Julianne? She passed through sun, moon, and star, through lions and through dragons. Does King Swan not wish to awaken?" But the king did not hear, for the cunning queen had feared the maiden and given him a sleeping potion. He slept so deeply that he would not have heard the maiden even if she stood before him. By morning, all seemed lost, and she had to sit by the gate again, spinning with her spindle. The queen also admired the spindle and agreed to take it under the same condition, that she could spend a night next to the king's bedroom. There she sang again, "Does King Swan not think of his promised bride Julianne? She passed through sun, moon, and star, through lions and through dragons. Does King Swan not wish to awaken?" Yet the king slept soundly again from another sleeping potion, and the maiden had also lost her spindle. On the third morning, she sat by the gate with her golden reel and wound it. The queen wanted this treasure too, and promised the girl another night by the bedroom. However, the girl had detected the deception and asked the king's servant to give him something else to drink that evening. Once more, she sang, "Does King Swan not think of his promised bride Julianne? She passed through sun, moon, and star, through lions and through dragons. Does King Swan not wish to awaken?" Then the king awoke. Upon hearing her voice, he recognized her and asked the queen, "When one loses a key and finds it again, does one keep the old one or the newly made one?" The queen replied, "Certainly, the old one." "Well, then you cannot be my wife any longer, for I have found my first bride again." The next morning, the queen had to return to her father's house, and the king married his true bride, and they lived happily ever after until they died. The Golden Egg. Once upon a time, there were a few poor broom binder boys who also had a little sister to feed, and their lives were difficult and meager. Every day, they had to go into the forest to gather brushwood, and once the brooms were made, their sister would sell them. One day, as they went into the forest, the youngest climbed a birch tree to cut branches, and there he found a nest. Inside sat a dark-colored bird that shimmered through its wings. Since the bird didn't fly away and showed no fear, he lifted its wing and found a golden egg. He took it and climbed down with it. They rejoiced over their find and took it to the goldsmith, who confirmed it was fine gold and gave them a lot of money for it. The next morning, they went into the forest again and found another golden egg, and the bird allowed them to take it patiently, just like the first time. This went on for a while. Every morning they retrieved the golden egg and soon became wealthy. One morning, however, the bird said, "I will lay no more eggs, but take me to the goldsmith. That will be your fortune." The broom binder boys did as it said and brought it to the goldsmith. When they were alone with him, the bird sang, "Who eats my heart will soon be king. Who eats my liver will find every morning under the pillow a purse of gold." Upon hearing this, the goldsmith called the two boys and said, "Leave me the bird, and I will marry your little sister." The two agreed, and a wedding was celebrated. However, the goldsmith said, "I will eat the bird at my wedding. You two, roast it on a spit, and be careful not to let it spoil. Bring it up when it is cooked." He intended to take out and eat its heart and liver. The two brothers stood by the spit and turned it around. As they did so, and the bird was soon roasted, a piece fell out. "Oh," said one, "let's try that," and ate it. Shortly after, another piece fell out. "That's for me," said the other, and tasted it. Unknown to them, they had eaten its heart and liver, not realizing the fortune it bestowed upon them. Afterwards, when the bird was roasted, they brought it to the wedding table. The goldsmith cut it open and intended to quickly eat the heart and liver, but they were gone. He became angrily furious and shouted, "Who has eaten the heart and liver of the bird?" "We did," they said. "A few pieces fell out while we were turning it, and we took them." If you have eaten the heart and liver, then you may also keep your sister. And in his anger, he drove them all away. The tailor who became rich soon. Once upon a time, a poor tailor was walking across the fields in winter to visit his brother. Along the way, he found a frozen thrush and said to himself, "What is bigger than a louse? The tailor takes home." So he picked up the thrush and took it with him. When he arrived at his brother's house, he peeked through the window to see if anyone was home. He saw a fat priest sitting with his sister-in-law in front of a table with a roast and a bottle of wine. Just then, there was a knock on the door, and the man wanted to come in. He saw how quickly the woman locked the priest in a chest, put the roast in the oven, and shoved the wine into bed. Now the tailor entered the house and greeted his brother and sister-in-law. He sat down on the chest where the priest was locked. The man said, "Wife, I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat?" "No, I'm sorry, but there's nothing in the house today." But the tailor pulled out his frozen thrush. His brother said, "My, what are you doing with the frozen thrush?" "Oh, it's worth a lot of money. It can tell fortunes." "Well then, let it tell a fortune." The tailor held it to his ear and said, "The thrush says there's a bowl full of roast in the oven." The man went there and found the roast. "What else does the thrush say?" "There's a bottle of wine in bed." He found the wine too. "Oh, I'd like to have that thrush. Sell it to me." "You can have it if you give me the chest I'm sitting on." The man agreed immediately, but the woman said, "That won't work. I'm too fond of the chest. I won't give it away." But the man said, "Don't be so silly. What good is such an old chest to you?" And he gave the chest to his brother in exchange for the bird. The tailor placed the chest on a wheelbarrow and carted it away. Along the way, he kept saying to himself, "I'll take the chest and throw it into the water. I'll take the chest and throw it into the water." Eventually, the priest inside stirred and said, "You know what's inside the chest. Let me out and I'll give you 50 thalers." "Yes, I'll do that." He let him out and went home with the money. People wondered where he got so much money from. But he said, "I'll tell you, hides are in high demand, so I slaughtered my old cow and got so much for the hide." The people in the village wanted to profit too. They came and slaughtered all their oxen, cows, and sheep, cutting their necks and taking the hides to the city. But they received very little money for them because so many were offered at once. The farmers were upset about the loss and threw dirt and other rubbish at the tailor's door. However, he collected everything in his chest, took it to the city to an inn, and asked the innkeeper if he could keep the chest containing valuable treasures for a while, as they weren't safe with him. The innkeeper gladly agreed and took the chest. Sometime later, the tailor returned, asked for it back, and opened it to see if everything was still there. But it was full of dirt, so he became furious, insulted the innkeeper, and threatened to sue him. Afraid of the scandal and concerned for his reputation, the innkeeper gladly gave him 100 thalers. The farmers were upset again that everything they did to harm the tailor turned into profit for him. They took the chest, forcibly stuffed him inside, set it on the water, and let it float away. The tailor remained quiet for a while until he had floated around a corner. Then he shouted loudly, "No, I won't do it. I won't do it, even if the whole world wanted it." A shepherd heard the shouting and asked, "What won't you do?" "Well," said the tailor, "there's a king who has this foolish notion that whoever floats down the river in this chest must marry his only beautiful daughter. But I've already made up my mind. I won't do it, even if the whole world wanted it." "Wait a minute. Couldn't someone else sit in the chest and marry the princess?" "Oh, yes, that could work." "Then I'll take your place." So the tailor got out, the shepherd got in, the tailor closed the chest again, and the shepherd soon sank. The tailor then took the entire flock of the shepherd and drove them home. The farmers were amazed at how he returned and even had so many sheep. The tailor said, "I sank deep, deep. There at the bottom, I found the entire flock and brought them out." The farmers wanted to get sheep too and went out together to the water. That day, the sky was completely blue with small white clouds, and they exclaimed, "We already see the lambs at the bottom." The mayor said, "I'll go down first, take a look, and if it's good, I'll call you." As he plunged in, the water splashed. Plump! They thought he was calling them, "Come," and all jumped in after him. Thus, the entire village belonged to the tailor.